one in six people are affected by infertility. And that often means someone that, is in the lawmaker's life, has probably been touched by infertility in some form or another.
1 in 6 people, which means this isn't just personal. It's reaching the people making decisions about fertility care. Because right now, your access to fertility care can depend on where you live, who you work for, and what your insurance covers.
The stigma that used to, come along with an infertility diagnosis seems to be really, impacted. Folks just feeling more comfortable sharing their stories and wanting to get more information on how to get access to the care that they need and that they deserve.
And that's what's shifting right now. More people are speaking up, more stories are being shared, and this conversation is gaining momentum in ways we haven't seen before. Because family building isn't a partisan issue, it's a human one.
So right now, really, access to fertility care across the country is largely determined by where you live or who your employer is.
And the system hasn't caught up. I'm joined by Alise Powell from Resolve, and we're breaking down what's changing in fertility policy, why access still depends on your state and employer, and how advocacy is shaping what comes next. Because this conversation isn't new, but what happens next could be. Alise, I love that this year's National Infertility Awareness Week theme is more than, because infertility really is more than a diagnosis, statistics. This affects real people across every political belief, income level, identity, and path, etc. I mean, so from your perspective, what does more than mean in this moment?
Yeah, thanks for having me so much, Whitney. So this year, we're really excited about National Infertility Awareness Week. We love the theme. As a staff, when we first heard the theme, we thought it was perfect. There were a couple different options, and this was the clear front runner. And I think it's because it really captures where the conversation is right now. Mm-hmm. It's about recognizing that, people navigating infertility are more than a diagnosis, they're more than a treatment plan. And more than the assumptions that often get placed on them. And like, as you mentioned, it's this disease affects people across the political spectrum. So I think it's really encapsulates, where things are in this moment, in this space.
Yeah, for sure. You've already touched on this before, but it really stood out to me that family building is not a partisan issue. It's a human one. Can you expand more on that? And what does that look like in the rooms where policies are being made?
Yeah, I mean, it's also more than just a clinical issue. The policy space now has changed so much. I joined Resolve staff almost a year and a half ago now. And since then, so much has changed even since then. We've seen, more and more people share their stories. The stigma that used to, come along with an infertility diagnosis seems to be really, impacted by the prevalence in the media and, folks just feeling more comfortable sharing their stories and wanting to get more information on how to get access to the care that they need and that they deserve. And so that's where Resolve is really, happy to step in and provide those resources. But I think in terms of the political perspective, we've seen, both sides of the aisle really coming together, access to IVF and as a bipartisan issue, a nonpartisan issue. And we've seen that, in the state legislature and also at the federal level now, the president has spoken about his support for IVF. And there was an executive order in last February that came out, wanting to expand access and affordability to IVF. And that was the first time at that national level that we've seen this issue highlighted. So, brought a lot of national attention. And also from the policy perspective, there's a lot of work to be done. There was, from that executive order, there were a couple of different pathways to expand access to care that came out of it. And, Resolve is really excited to see, what else we can do and where we can be helpful to further expand access to care.
Yeah. Do you find that lawmakers respond differently when they hear personal stories versus statistics?
100%. I mean, in some of the state level work that we do when we have our state advocacy days, that we had one in Minnesota earlier this year and a couple of last year that I attended. And by far the most impactful way to share your story and to get folks who maybe are reaching across the aisle on board is hearing from their constituents. One in six people are affected by infertility or impacted or experiencing infertility. And that often means someone that, is in the lawmaker's life, has probably been touched by infertility in some form or another. And so hearing a story like that from their constituent who, is trying to grow their family and is either not able to because of a lack of access to care in this state. We're trying to, persuade them and give them the facts as to why this would be a great family building and pro-family initiative. Super impactful and really moving. And I've seen it happen, firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said that you joined Resolve as the director of government affairs a little over a year and a half ago is what you said. And I mean, I know, like you said, there's so much shifting that has happened. What's happening right now that makes advocacy in this space maybe more urgent than ever?
So much. So right now, really, access to fertility care across the country is largely determined by where you live or who your employer is.
Mm-hmm.
And 21 states right now have some type of fertility care coverage, and 15 of those states are IVF mandated states. And so it's really a patchwork, was kind of what we refer to it as, of coverage. And no state currently requires Medicaid coverage for IVF, so that leaves out a large swath of the population.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really, at Resolve, our policy work and the access to care team, which I lead, is at the federal and state level, trying to bridge those gaps. At the state level, we're trying to push a few states to expand their coverage for IVF. And so in Minnesota, California just recently passed and enacted their IVF mandate, which is really exciting. That was a very long, hard fight that kind of culminated before I even got on staff. But now in this implementation phase, it's amazing that California, huge state, a lot of folks look to across the country and are hoping that we're hoping that they follow California's lead. So other states that we're working proactively are Minnesota, Virginia. So we're seeing a lot of good progress there. Every year that we go back, we're hearing, lawmakers saying, "Oh, we remember when you guys came last year, and we remember the advocates." And we're so grateful to be connected with them again. And there's lots of, like I said, there's lots of bipartisan support, more than we've ever seen in the past few years, because this is a pro-family issue. And so I think on the proactive side of things, we're seeing a lot of great momentum and, all this national media attention. And at the federal level, we're hoping also that momentum expands down to the states.
Yeah, for sure. When you say IVF mandate, what exactly does that mean?
Essentially, that means insurance companies would be required to cover IVF and fertility care benefits, just like they would if you had a knee replacement or a hip replacement. And that's kind of how we like to frame things: is IVF is expensive because it's not covered by insurance,
Right.
like any other healthcare or disease or injury would be covered. And so these IVF mandates are essentially requiring insurance companies to cover fertility care benefits. So that folks who receive their insurance either from the large group market, that's generally a lot of the mandates are for large group market only. So for folks who work at companies where there's usually over 100 employees. And then we've got some other states as we work through that process for the smaller and individual group markets and through the ACA exchange, which is what Virginia is working on right now.
Got it. So it was interesting. I had a conversation with Elizabeth Carr because I know the insurance aspect of things is such a passion for her, and she was saying
Yeah.
that there is still such a big difference between your state mandating, having an IVF mandate, but your employer, the type of insurance that they choose, can still be a barrier.
Yeah, that absolutely, and that's part of the some of the challenges that we try to address. It's usually for passing an IVF mandate in the large group market is no cost to the state.
Hmm.
So that's generally the clearest path for us to take first, and then um, from there we can work on expanding coverage to different markets. But yeah, it's still a barrier. Where you work and who your employer is and what kind of benefits they choose is still it still matters, and unfortunately limits access to care for folks.
Hey, real quick, before we keep going, what if your story is about more than just the outcome? April 19th through the 25th is National Infertility Awareness Week, a movement to change the conversation around infertility, break down misinformation, and remind people they are not alone. This year's theme is more than. So every day that week, we're releasing a new episode exploring each day's theme, plus our full episode on Wednesday. If you want to learn more about NIAW, head to infertilityawareness.org. And make sure you subscribe to Create a Happy Family wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. All right, back to the conversation. Yeah, no, for sure. What misconceptions do lawmakers often have about infertility in family building that you feel like you're having conversations about whenever you are going to Capitol Hill?
Good question. I think cost is always the number one issue that folks bring up, and
Sure.
we've done a lot of research, and there we still need more research and data on exactly how once you pass an insurance mandate, what the uptake is. But I think there's wild inflation on what people think, how many people they think will be using this type of coverage. And I know insurance companies purposefully kind of inflate those numbers and,
Mm,
make it seem as if it's going to cost, we've seen up to like 6, 7 times what the projections are based on some of the numbers that we have. And so what we found in some of the states like New York and Connecticut and Colorado, I believe, when we've done some analysis on what the cost actually is in terms of increase in per member per month in your insurance premium, it turns out to be usually something like a cup of coffee, like a couple of dollars, maybe less. We've
no
seen a couple
way.
of cents, yeah, in terms of an increase in your premium, and so that's really like the biggest kind of myth buster that we've got to go up against is just how much um, the cost would be, and it's kind of difficult to pinpoint depending on the state.
Uh-huh.
But I think the numbers that we do have are really on our side.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I think in my head, because I see how much these things cost, and especially because I know we're focusing mostly on IVF, and that's IVF specifically to the person or holder or dependent of that insurance having IVF, but we haven't even gotten into what does it look like to need to use a surrogate or need to use an egg donor and that type of coverage. And just alone when you're looking at those numbers, I mean, it is so expensive, but maybe that is the only path. And I feel like if you are looking at it where you can say, no, it really is just a couple of cents or like less than that latte that you get at Starbucks. I mean, how
totally.
can anybody say no to that?
Totally. And that's why that's one of our favorite talking points. It really puts things in perspective on how life changing this type of coverage would be and how little the potential cost could be if we were to make this positive policy change.
Yeah, for sure. I know, there's a lot of people who don't expect to become advocates. They're just trying to build their family, and suddenly
Yeah.
they are navigating insurance denials and legal uncertainty. Why do you think infertility so often turns people into reluctant advocates, if you will?
I think it's really like, down to like the human nature of it all. And,
Yeah.
this is such a pro family. I keep saying that, but it's a pro family issue. And, at Resolve, we want to provide the support and education and resources that people need so that everyone who wants to build their family and needs to do it through IVF or other family building, um, requirements and needs, to build their family, they deserve access to that care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we mentioned a couple of times about how across party lines, we're hearing more and more that folks are recognizing that fertility care is essential health care.
Yeah.
And that's, it's taken a really long time to get to this point. And I think it's amazing to see it happen. But also, it feels a little like we're kind of catching up to where this community has been at for a really long time. And so I think,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's a very passionate group of community that we have on our side. And, it's also really impactful, for the folks who have been fighting for a long time and have resolved their families in whatever way they see fit. They come back and advocate, and sometimes they bring their kids
Mm.
that are their IVF babies. So that's also a really rewarding and really impactful for lawmakers to see as well. Like, look at the family that you helped us to build.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest shifts that still needs to happen, but I think is, like you said, slowly being more understood. And you said it at the beginning, was being diagnosed with infertility. It is a diagnosis, just like, you tore your ACL. That's a
Yeah.
diagnosis, instead of, oh, it's just something that you want and you just can't have. Like, it's
Hmm.
not, oh, I can't have ice cream today. It's, I've been diagnosed with something.
Yeah, it's a disease recognized by the World Health Organization, the American Medical Association, the
Mm-hmm.
American Society for Reproductive Medicine. All the medical authority organizations, are on the same page and in alignment about infertility is a disease. And at Resolve, we think that it should be covered just like any other injury, illness, or disease.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you witnessed that has maybe surprised you about just everyday people stepping into that advocacy role?
I would say, when we've got some anti family legislation that we've been kind of fighting against the past few months since state legislative sessions have started from
Mm-hmm.
January till now, we've had to activate our communities in certain states that are, trying to introduce bills that would be harmful or restrict access to IVF. And those are always the times where our community really steps up.
Mm.
In South Dakota, in particular, there was a bill that would have restricted and regulated and kind of surveilled what people are doing with their embryos, and
Mm.
requiring the health department to, track how many embryos were implanted and where they were, what the embryo disposition was, and whether or not you could genetically test the embryos that you created. So it was just very restrictive and not in line with the standard practice of care. And when we activated, we have such a small network in South Dakota, but the folks who we did reach out to in our network, they really stepped up. They showed up to testify, and they helped us defeat the bill. We
Yeah.
did it together as a community, with other advocacy partners, with ASRM as well. And I think that was really amazing to see. And over the past year and a half that I've been here or so, and even before that, there's been so many anti-family building bills that have been introduced, and each time Resolve has been if not like leading the conversation at the table or involved in defeating those bills. And so right now, access to IVF is still available to everybody in all 50 states, or it's still protected.
Yeah.
So I think that is, amazing considering how much we've been up against,
Hmm.
particularly this past year or so.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many families that are navigating this, just the financial strain of it, but also that emotional strain. What are maybe just the biggest gaps that you're seeing across the country still that Resolve is wanting to continue to move forward?
I really think that, this patchwork system at the state level is really it's allowing a lot of people to fall through the cracks. And
Mm,
I think, a handful of states post the Alabama court ruling in 2024 introduced IVF protection laws that, guarantee that you have the right to access this care, which
right.
is good. But to take it a step further and to allow people to actually have the access to this care, they need insurance coverage. We think that's
Yeah.
the best way to go about it. And so we're really continuing to push in certain states that you would, I think some folks would kind of expect would be more on board. It's been difficult. I think the budgets in a lot of states have really been a barrier for us in terms of expanding access and adding cost to the state is not really in a lot of there's not a lot of wiggle room in a lot of state budgets
Mm,
this year. I know there's larger conversations around Medicaid cuts and everything that's also kind of playing into this, into how we are strategically moving in the policy space. But it's been really challenging in terms of state expanding state insurance mandates in some states we've been trying in for a really long time. And so we've been kind of working on our strategy and trying to figure out more creative ways to expand access to care. And in Virginia is kind of one way that or a new track that we're kind of taking with in terms of adding fertility care benefits to the essential health benefits and it's part of the ACA market exchange. And that's
yeah.
the Virginia bill that's kind of working its way through the process now. And it's been pretty smooth sailing. So,
Okay, touch wood.
yeah, so far. So that's a new avenue that we're kind of exploring in terms of expanding the markets that
Yeah.
we're able to add fertility care benefits to.
When from an advocacy standpoint, as far as maybe surrogacy and egg donation specifically, how are these paths being represented or maybe even misrepresented in policy conversations?
Yeah, this year we've actually seen quite a few bad and regulatory and restrictive bills about surrogacy. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of stories in the media that have influenced that, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really concerning, and particularly in Florida, there's been quite a couple of there's a court case in Florida and a couple of bills that have made it their way through that are really going to restrict who can build their family via surrogacy in the state of Florida. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really something that we're trying to figure out the best way to change the narrative and to just really focus on the fact that the folks who need these services don't have the it's already difficult to access. And so putting up these legal parameters is only going to make it that much harder.
Yeah.
So it's been in the surrogacy and gestational carrier space, it's been really difficult this year
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in terms of policy.
What do you wish more leaders understood about third party reproduction and why it matters that it should be protected and that these conversations need to be had?
I think this kind of goes back to the storytelling element. I think
Mm-hmm.
more of them need to be in contact with the folks who have been trying for, some folks up to years to have gone through IVF themselves or other fertility care treatments and have not been successful and need to, for medical reasons, move to the next step of perhaps third party help. And so I think we've got to find a better way for the lawmakers to, see these families and understand the struggles that they faced, and also the real desire to build their families. And we know that that's a nonpartisan issue, a bipartisan issue. And so we know that this is something that, most people agree on. So we've got to figure out a better way to get everybody to understand where folks who might need third-party reproduction, where they're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. I love that the more than theme really emphasizes that infertility doesn't look just one way. From your vantage point, who do you feel like is still being left out of the conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, it's part of why Resolve earlier this year expanded our name. We're now Resolve, the National Infertility and Family Building Association. And that better reflects the full community that we serve and our commitment to supporting all paths to parenthood, including folks that have resolved their families and are childless not by choice. I think that's a community that we are really going to strategically focus on providing resources and education to support. And I think that this expanded name change is really kind of embodies that. So your question about the theme, I think that, that's exactly why it's a very inclusive theme. We've spent years talking about building the visibility, which is what National Infertility Awareness Week does. And now we're kind of shifting and really focused on what comes next, which is the action part. And so, intentionally building a bridge this year from awareness to action. And we've got this year, this is our inaugural month of action that will take place throughout the month of May, starting May 1st. And it's, not just about telling stories, it's also about organizing those stories into collective action. We've got a full 31 days worth of activities and ways to engage with lawmakers to help build digital storytelling. We've got Advocacy 101 webinars. We also got webinars with some of the partners in our space that don't necessarily only serve the infertility community, but intersect in a lot of the work that they do. So kind of shining a light on what those intersections are and how we can broaden our community. And, we're working in alliance with the American Society for Reproductive Medicine on this and bringing together the patient and provider voice. And the goal really is to meet people where they are and also direct engagement with policymakers. And we're trying to make advocacy feel more accessible and also more urgent, because it is. And I think, this month is really, the month of May will be meant for, current advocates to kind of level up their leadership that they've been building, who may have been continuous advocates for NIAW, been looking for more ways to get involved and introduce them, and also new advocates to what Resolve does and what we fight for, and for our state and federal lawmakers to hear from them about why fertility and family building issues matter. So we're really excited about this new initiative that kind of builds from National Infertility Awareness Week, which ends on the 25th, and then we'll start on the 1st with our month of action. So we're really excited about all that's to come in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, because you're right. NIAW it's such an amazing week, and it really does bring so much awareness to something that 1 in 6 are affected by. I guarantee that we all know someone, at least personally, or we know of someone by someone else that is affected by this. And it doesn't just end on the 25th. It doesn't end at the end of the week. There is so much to do. I love this month of action that can give you steps, and it doesn't feel overwhelming, and it doesn't feel daunting, and it's, oh gosh, Capitol Hill, or, whatever it may be. That is so fantastic. If you could speak directly to policymakers, what's the just one more that feels so urgent?
I think the sense of urgency now is that the media attention and the fact that infertility is such a kitchen table topic now. I think particularly I'm a millennial, so I know a lot of my friends are in the thick of it right now in their family building journey in whatever form that's taking. And so I really think that education from at the lawmaker level and also at the patient level
Mm-hmm.
is really where I think we could see the most impact in educating people on and lawmakers in particular on what kind of impact expanding access to this type of care will have on real families. I think when advocates are talking to their lawmakers and they're explaining exactly what the links that they've gone to financially. Folks have refinanced their mortgages, are taking on
Mm-hmm.
second jobs at maybe a company that offers fertility care benefits because their primary job doesn't. They're going into debt. They're creating GoFundmes. I think the real world impact of not having access to this kind of care and coverage, I think, is the most impactful storytelling that we have, and
Mm-hmm.
really understanding what folks are willing to do to grow their family and to build their family and realize their dreams of the family that they've thought about for years and have really
Yeah.
struggled to build. So I think education in terms of for lawmakers to understand that, and then for the patients to really understand the type of impact that has on lawmakers, I think is the one more.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you think community matters so much when it comes to infertility advocacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the theme of our month of action is the power of we. Um,
Mm,
and I think it's so perfect because we're really trying to build and grow our community for to include folks that who maybe have not yet thought about what their family journey building journey is going to look like.
yeah.
And the folks that are in it right now and the folks that have been through it and have been a loyal resolve advocate and a really
Mhm.
engaged one for years, who can really help teach and train and lead the folks that are kind of coming up behind them in
Mhm.
this journey. So I think building our community generationally is really exciting, and also across in the advocacy space in particular, building our community between disease organizations like the cancer groups,
Mhm.
endometriosis groups, PCOS groups, sickle cell groups. We're really trying, and men's infertility as well. We're really trying to
Yeah.
bring everybody into the fold who touches this space, and realize, and we know that we're all going to be stronger and better and more powerful the larger and the broader our depth goes. So I think that's the really important and impactful part of community.
Yeah, I love that so much because you're so right. All of those spaces that you just talked about, whether it's, like you said, cancer or sickle cell or all of these other diseases that you just don't even think about the trickle down effect of what that could lead to other areas of your life. And I love that those connections are being made.
Yeah.
What is just with everything going on, what gives you hope right now?
I think it's really the advocates. We are really excited for this month of action for National Infertility Awareness Week. We've been seeing people getting really excited. We've got some new changes coming to the way that we do things in terms of our federal advocacy. So this month of action, we're excited to kind of pilot it. And so I think hearing the community be excited about different ways to get involved and meeting them where they're at, and being able to really meet this moment that's at the national level now.
Mhm.
um, it's been a really long time coming, I think. And so we just really want to maximize on this. So I think our patient advocates and our Resolve community is really what gives me hope for sure.
I love that. If someone listening today is feeling defined by their diagnosis, what would you want them to hear during this National Infertility Awareness Week?
I would say, our theme is perfectly positioned to kind of address that. You are more than that community that you can build in this space, and the resources and the folks who have gone through this journey before and have so many resources and so much wisdom to share, and also support to give. I think, that's the more than that we're trying to build upon, and really to bring it back to the sense of community, that you're not alone in this. And there's a huge community of people generationally now that are, here and have the support and the resources and the encouragement and the empowerment to keep going.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Alise, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, for everything that is upcoming and going. I mean, it can feel, it's so easy for advocacy to feel distant or political, but you've done such an amazing job of reminding us that it really is about real people and just honestly hope. I have one last question for you, and it's a fun one.
Okay.
You've seen me this whole time sipping on my lovely warm beverage. Coffee and we are never far from one another. And so I always love to ask the question, what has filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing that has filled your cup?
Oh, literally an iced latte. It's now finally warm enough in DC to kind of switch over to an iced drink. So I'm really excited about that. We've had a really rough winter in DC. So happy to see the sun and to have some warmth. And then work-wise, I would say, we are working now on a in-person Hill Day that we're hosting this year. It's going to be really small, but the advocates that we've are bringing together I'm really excited to meet them in person and to be with them, to do some leadership training, some in-depth kind of advocacy training. They're really excited about the opportunity, and I think it's going to be a really great moment, a really great couple days in DC. I think in-person advocacy is really like the most impactful, and I think seeing real people who have real stories to share is really the thing that moves the needle. So I'm excited, and our advocates that we're bringing together are really excited. So I think that's filling my cup today.
I love that you've been refreshed, and I love that you have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much. And you've said it already, but one more time, for National Infertility Awareness, you can go to resolve.org, and then the month of action starts May 1st. And
Yes.
To find out more about that, everybody just needs to go to resolve.org.
Yes. The National Infertility Awareness, because its own page, actually, infertilityawareness.org.
Perfect.
But yes, the month of action will be on resolve.org.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much just for everything you're doing, the heart that you bring to this. I know everybody listening, just head to resolve.org to find out how you can help. And again, I'm so grateful for all that you have done and all that you continue to be doing in this space. So thank you, Alise.
Thanks, Whitney.